All right, hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to what I think will be the final video of the Confounding Calendar. Because I've at the very least played them all. Sure, I haven't solved them all. I think I've decided I'm not going to go back. I'm going to kind of leave some things unfinished. Maybe at some point in the future I might play them, like not record it. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But for today, we're going to play the one that I haven't played so far. Well, which is I'm Too Big for the Target by me. Yeah, I guess I have played it because I made it. In fact, I've played it many, many times, and just testing it, like that bit before like putting it out and releasing it, or submitting it in this case. The amount of times I played it from start to end just to make sure everything still worked. Because I like, even if I change something at the end, well, as you'll see, like it's a very interconnected puzzle. If I change one thing in one place, I don't trust that it's going to work the whole way through. I really have to make sure I do a full start to finish test every time. Anyway, since I made it, we'll talk through some of the kind of design process and like the actual just the general process of making it. Untangle a strange room of cables and mysterious boxes. Your goal is to stand on the target, but you are sadly too big for it. Controls, arrow keys to move, set to undo, R to restart the most recent checkpoints. Ta-da, let's go full screen. All right, so first thing to note is there's a little animation when the thing starts. Ta-da! And that highlights up, and then it seems to go around there, seems to spiral around here, and then suddenly like pops in from the side for whatever reason. So those who have played this already will notice that the bottom left corner has changed. I've just pushed an update to change the bottom left corner slightly because it allowed not doing the solution that I intended. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's just there's a nice little trick I wanted to like require that people do. I think it's now required. I'll think about it when I get down there. It should be. Because I can't put things in and then push them. Yeah, okay, should be fine. Anyway, okay, so this is I'm Too Big for the Target. So the idea for this came from basically it came from thinking about like, oh, the whole premise of the Confounding Calendar is to make a single screen puzzle. What would be a way of making something that's single screen, but also kind of not, like it's bigger than the single screen that I'm looking at. And then I'd also been thinking for a while about, let me jump out of full screen actually, and then just look for something over here. Recursive maze. If I search for that, what do I get? Recursive maze. Recursive wire maze. Okay. Yeah, something like this. This is one that I've seen before. Here you go. See this? So like there's a few images like this out in the world that are like, I think for this one, you're supposed to start at the plus, yeah, or the minus, and then follow the things. And each A, B, and C are all copies of the room that you're in. And you're supposed to eventually come back out of A. So you have to keep track of which one you're in this case. It's not like you're in all of them at the same time. It's not like Patrick's Paradox where you know, if you're pushing the room around that you're in, then you're also inside that room that you're pushing. No, you're going into them and then coming back out of them. Eventually you come back out to the minus. And there's others like that as well. Like I guess that's one, probably. But yeah, I've seen a bunch of these before, and I've been thinking for a while about this kind of thing and thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if you could push things around in some way? I really had no idea what I meant by that. I was just like, wouldn't it be cool if you were like connecting? Because the other thing is that I was thinking about is that in the previous Confounding Calendar, there was this game by Menderbug, it's Pentaglyph. I love doing things that are about like you've got it's like Sokoban, you've got boxes, but the boxes have got some property and there's like something on them in some way. And well, so this has got like cables in it, and then that like light up when you put stuff on. How does it work again? Oh yeah, you like combine things and then put them on there, and the cables light up. And just that, there's that fun thing of like lighting up cables and then opening doors and all that kind of stuff. So I was partly thinking about that, partly just thinking about, in general, I have an interest in the kind of Sokoban games where the blocks have some property, like Conveyor Confusion, which I organize, where the blocks are like conveyor belts and you can stand on them and they make you move. So yeah, just thinking about all that kind of stuff. Also, another good example is Snalians, where there are kind of blocks that have like cables on them, which is what ends up coming up in this. I don't think I really thought about that in particular, but just like the idea of there being cables on top of boxes that you have to push around, it's an awesome idea. And I wanted to combine that with that kind of nested maze of cables idea in some way. And this is what I came up with. So that's kind of where the idea came from. Let me just get to the bit where it kind of makes sense what's going on. So I start here in this little room at the top. What am I? I don't know. I kind of see the character as a little naked person. One person described it as a lion. Sure, I could go with lion. If you think it looks like a lion, yeah, sure. Anyway, so I'm inside this little room, and I kind of like this idea of starting off with a bunch of little tutorials that just explain to you pushing around the boxes and all that kind of stuff. And those tutorials could be like little rooms that you move from one to the other. And so the start of this game starts off with these like, I guess like 4 rooms, one after the other, or 5 rooms. And then it sort of opens up a little bit. There's also a lot going on here. Like there's this gap here. I'm kind of hoping people go, oh, that gap's too small. And people might already be thinking about what might happen later because of that. There's also a block here. If you push that, it disconnects the wire and you're stuck in this room forever, so don't do that. This door here, so the wires when they hit a door, they'll open the door. The door that's on the left, that was added almost the very last thing I added in the entire game. And that is to prevent something that could potentially happen later on. That's all it's there for. But yeah, for now, let's just ignore it. So we go into this room, we can find out we can push these boxes. There's a gap here, so we need to connect it. Done. And then that was the sound of you reaching a checkpoint. Restarting will take you back to this checkpoint. One thing I meant to change at some point but never did is that the checkpoint sound, I don't know if it's that like distinctive enough, but whatever. So then we've got like basically the same setup with a block and we've got a hole in the wall, but sadly the wire on this block isn't the right way around. It would have been nice if I could have had this one be one that turns down and left so it does light up but doesn't continue. But whatever, I ended up with this one. Okay, so then the thing is like, okay, so I need to fill this in. Where do I get that block from? Well, that block's stuck. Oh, there's this other block that's up here, right? So then we're like, okay, let's go get it. We get it from this side, and then, well, we can't take it anywhere because the door's closed. So the funny thing is, Beaky did a game for this Confounding Calendar. I played it earlier in my sessions. Where was Beaky's game? Was it really early? Not that early. Oh, here, A Wire Power. Yeah, this one. Which completely coincidentally ended up having similar things going on. Like, you're pushing these blocks around which have cables on and they connect to the wires. The rules are like a bit different actually in terms of how wires connect up between our two games. But the funny thing is the last room of this, or one of the, like, I think it's either the third room or the fourth room of this, do what my game does now. Like, it's like the same kind of trick. In Beaky's example, it's a bit more, there's a bit more to it. But for me, I was like, well, I really want to teach effectively that if you place a block on a door and the door should open, the block holds the door down. Like, I want to teach that like as early as possible because it's going to keep coming up. So it's interesting how, despite having similar mechanics, we use that trick at different times of our puzzles. Yeah. And it basically, for Beaky's one, it becomes like the hardest puzzle in the thing. For mine, it's like meant to be just the opening thing that you learn. Okay, so now we have that can go there. And then this can come through. And then we've got a weird situation where there's just like a gap between this and the door. I can take this along this wall, but then it's just like stuck against this wall. What am I supposed to do with it then? So the silly little, it's barely even a puzzle, but the silly thing is that you have to just go through to the next room and then put that there to open the door and then take this through. Then we can fill this in and it opens that door. Then the hope is that people will go up this direction because they've opened the space. Like, I'm kind of thinking at this point, people have no idea what this is here. Like, maybe some people have like kind of figured out what this might be by noticing the connection between this and this up here that kind of looks similar. And there's like a green bit in the middle, like a green bit here. But I'm kind of hoping that people maybe don't really know yet and they just start like coming into this space simply because that gate opened and this that's now open. And I can't push up here. So they just like push down, they go, oh, okay, so that whole thing moves as one thing. What does that mean? And wait a second, so the power disappeared from there, and hopefully people kind of go, like, what's happening here? Kind of undo, push it again, try and see what's going on. For some reason, we lose all the power to this bit, and then power comes in through that bit if I push it down to here. Also, is this connected to this? And eventually, you realize that what's going on is that this room, this giant block thing here is the room that we're in. The other way people might come to realize it is by walking out here first, at which point you see yourself out the window. And then the other fun thing is that it's rotated around 180 degrees. So I'm standing next to the third window on the right here, which is the third window on the left on there, right? And as I walk left, I'm moving right outside. So yeah, outside these windows is this world, right? Just rotated 180 degrees. And then that copy also has a room inside it and so on and so forth. It's not a copy, it's just the same room over and over and over again. Anyway, yeah, that's the gimmick. The whole like getting this to draw, like most of the rules here are pretty simple to implement, right? Like just pushing blocks around and they power up cables. The powering cables is kind of a lot, like making it so it disconnects if you move something. That was quite complicated. But then there's things like making it so that if the player is standing next to a window, making sure that entire window up here is filled in. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just very like it's not actually drawing a whole character up here. It's literally just drawing 3 character colored squares. And all it does is kind of like says, oh, if there's a character here and there's a window above them, it basically for each window there's a rule that sends like a copy of the character object to the window, and then there's some rules that say, well, if the character's on the window up here, draw out 3 character colored squares in that space. You'll notice that if you stand next to the gate, this is a nice little detail, you can see like the floor through here still rather than the pink of the player, because they've got like little legs that stick down, right? So you're seeing the gap between their legs. Whereas with other objects, if you at some point put another object there, which we do with this actually right now, it fills it up entirely. So the side of this is now filling up that doorway there. Anyway, silly little detail, but didn't want to leave it not like that, so there we go. And so because that's the room, when we push it down and that lights up, it's because this thing here, I call it a connector in the code, is this connector in the larger room, and the power comes in and then it has nowhere to go. So we need to set that up because right now we're stuck in this area. It was so complicated to design the space, like just making it so that like this needs to exist for some reason. I can't remember exactly what, this gap here, but so that I can leave in a second. But to make it so that because like the distances between these two connectors affects like the where this room can get pushed to, and that affects which gaps next to the room would be available depending on where I position it, and it has to be unavailable in this state but available in a different state, and so on and so forth. And it was a lot. So let me undo until that's come back. There we go. So what we actually have to do is push this down here so it's ready for when we push the room down and that power comes through, and that's gonna open that door, and then we can push this on top of that door. So even though, oh yeah, there's a checkpoint there as well. Even though like, so we powered the door and we pushed this room on top of the door, so it's not going to open. Okay, so that's that. You'll notice that through the little window, you can see the wall here. You can see what's going on along the top here. I just did not want to deal with having to draw complicated things in these windows. So I did everything I could to prevent you being able to bring things. Well, no, you can bring boxes and stuff. That's fine. What was the issue? I think I just didn't want loads of walls there, so I didn't have to have custom sprites on every single thing. I also felt like it would mess up the aesthetics of the room. But there is a custom sprite on that right-hand window because this had to be there because there's a connector here, and I didn't want the connector to go into nothing. So I had to add wall, and I added the bit of wall in the window, but whatever. Doesn't matter too much. So yeah, another thing is like, so I had to decide on the size of the room very early on in making this thing. And I had to decide, like I wanted it to be exact in some way. And so what it is that each position in the actual room is 1 pixel on the smaller version of the room. If I'd done like partial, it would have been horrendous. Like I just wouldn't have been able to do it if it was like partial, if the sizes weren't easily divisible into each other. So I made it match exactly, which also meant making sure that things like, because like the wall of the room, there needs to be a wall, right? And the windows have like a thing next to them, so that means the wall of the room has to be aligned with the edge of the window, etc. Like I couldn't have this wall one further out, because then it'd be like, well, where is that wall? Like it would be further out from this room, like 1 pixel further out. But no, I made it all fit exactly. And I ended up settling on 7x7. Odd number is good because then you can have something in the middle. I wanted the door to be in the middle. And then it was just a case of, well, I don't want the puzzle to be too big. It's meant to be a confounding calendar, small puzzle thing. But if I make the room too small, if I made it 5x5, then we don't have much space to work in. Sure, the room itself is smaller, so that like that adds a little bit of space. But it's like, it's not, like honestly, like maybe 9x9 would have been amazing for designing, because the amount of space I would have had around stuff would have been fantastic. However, it would have been huge. So I'm glad I didn't do that. And I just managed to make this work. Like, so you can see the structure of the level now, because we're pushing this huge block around. There's all these huge open spaces. That's because this is going to work its way through bit by bit. The other thing is that, so the only reason I did the 180-degree rotation thing is because I needed the windows to be visible on both the inside and the outside of the room. I was like, how am I going to do that? I can't draw windows down here. Also, I wouldn't be able to see outside of them. I wouldn't be able to do a cool effect. And yeah, like, yeah. So, yeah, I basically decided 180 degrees rotation was the fix, and that came with it's kind of funny in its own way. That like, not only are you pushing the room around that you're in, but also it's rotated, and why would I do that? That's evil. But it's funny, right? It's funny to be evil. That's my theory anyway. Okay, so one thing I should go into. Oh, so the other thing is that like, if I push this room against like the wall, you know, it fills that in. So like, I'm pretty sure anything that could be outside a window will show up at the top. I don't think I missed anything. Even walls with cables on them show the cable, which we'll see in a second. And the other thing I was going to do is like, so if I run over here all the way up to the windows, I wonder how many people do this, because there's not really anything you can do over here right now. The only thing you can do over here right now is take that block and put it in there, but it's kind of useless at the moment. You can't get access to these. You could push them up, but you won't be able to do anything with them. You just get stuck. And you can't go in that way because that needs to be open. So there's, yeah, sure, you can bring it here, but no benefit from doing it. Everything else is just stuck. Anyway, I can walk up to this window at the very least. And then if you're like observant, you can see there's like a little tiny version of yourself in the window down here, which is like, how does that work actually? How did I do that? I think, how did I implement that? I think there's a bunch of rules that are just like, if there's an object that's like 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from the open window, it copies a thing along and then it draws the right sprite based on what it is. Yeah, it's a nightmare, as you can imagine. Because like it also has to show that, depending on how close I am to the window, here you can see the top of the character and here you can see the body of the character. Yeah, that's something. Okay, the other thing is this took me so long to make. I actually started making something a month before the Confounding Calendar, and then, which is, yeah, because you're supposed to submit before the December, yeah. So I started at the beginning of November, I think, and I mean, I wasn't doing it the whole time at all. I was doing it maybe like just one day each weekend or something like that until towards the end, where I just did like a bunch of days in a row, but it took me ages to make. Okay, so anyway, the next bit. So I really wanted to have a bit at the beginning. To be honest, I think it probably could have come later because so the way I break this up is that there's puzzles that happen like around the sides. Like this room down here is kind of by itself, and this room over here is like its own little puzzle, and so on. And then there's the puzzle of like actually moving the room itself through the space. I think the puzzles of like moving the room through the space kind of get weak at like this point. There's nothing really much going on that's new or anything. So maybe like I could have saved some stuff for a bit later. At the same time, I'm kind of glad there's not much going on here. It's nice that the ending is just kind of simple and you just push things along and it works. Although maybe it's not as simple as I think it is. Anyway, so what I wanted though is to have like things where you're pushing the room back up and down along the same corridor. So the puzzle that I came up for that is that you're actually pushing the room back up to get connected there. And you need to do that because you need access to this at some point, and clearly you're going to be coming through this. Well, so ultimately we want to push the room left, right? And so sure, there's this like huge space here, but I have no way of getting in it while the room's in front of it. There's also that space there, but I can't get there without that door being open. So let's get that door open. Sure, we can get it open while the room's there, which also opens this one as well. But how do we then get in it? Well, we use the trick that we taught earlier. That's why I wanted to teach it right at the beginning of the game, is that we can hold that door open and then push this down, and then we'd be able to go in there and push that to the left. I'm hoping that the next thing people do is kind of go, all right, so bring that down, push this along. Oh, how's that going to go any further? Because there's a door in the way. I quite liked that this pattern sort of emerged. Just like I had not, in going into designing it, I had not really imagine that this is how it would work, but having these little gates along the route that the room is taking is just a nice little way of structuring it and giving it like kind of goalposts that you're trying to get past, which is nice. So how does this get powered? Well, it was powered by this, but this doesn't have any power anymore, but maybe we could get power in there through this bit along this wire. So we need a horizontal thing. Oh, we've got a horizontal thing. Great. Okay. So we've got a horizontal thing. La, 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 la. This is what I'm hoping the process is. Like when I design a puzzle like this, that's what I'm doing, is I'm going like, okay, what does the person who's playing it think next? And hopefully there's nothing they can think that, like, there's nothing they can think that will lead them to do something that gets them past an obstacle in a way that I had not imagined they would do. And so I'm also thinking about the things that they might try that, like I want there to be like stuck. Like I'm imagining them going down a path where they get stuck, and then they go, "Oh, but I've got to do this thing." And so here's one of them as well, right? So okay, we've opened this door. Great, let's go and push the room. What I'm hoping is they go this, and it closes. It's like, oh no, but how do we get past there? And then the next thing to realize is that what you need to do is come all the way back. Okay, let's put this block down here, and we're just going to use that not for connections or anything, although it will be used for connection in a second, but just as an extension to the room to be able to block the door when we push it. Ta-da! A kind of silly thing here is that this ends up now going. So this gets powered, it comes in through here, goes through there, and opens that door. So it ends up getting used twice. So it is. Like, I do wonder if anybody thought ahead and was like, oh, at that point, I'm going to, like, the size of the room is going to require that I have a thing here to send this power. Well, not even the size of the room. There's going to have to be a thing here to send this power to this door. So that's kind of technically a second way you can get to the idea that you need to put this in this position as you push it along. I guess at the very least would prevent you doing it with a different block, but you don't have any other blocks, so I didn't really need to prevent it. But this serves another purpose for later, so I'm okay with there being like kind of two routes. I'm okay with there being two routes in general. Like they're both valid ways to come to the conclusion that you're supposed to push the thing there. Anyway, okay, now we're across here. All right, and so now we're at the bit that I've just changed. In fact, I should have pushed that bit further. There's another checkpoint there. Okay, push that further. Now we're kind of locked on this side. I mean, it is a bit, like possible to take the room back, but there's just no reason to. And I hope that kind of feels clear. There's definitely some concern that, like, I don't know, like, people might assume you need to keep taking this thing back and forth. How would they know? To like what you really want to do is like cut out options that the player could think about, and I don't know. I did my best, but there's definitely things of like, well, how do I know I'm not repowering this up and taking it back that way? Well, what am I going to gain from that, I guess, is the thing. Oh, also, we can see the wire outside the window, the wire that's on this wall. If it were powered, you'd be able to see it powered as well. I'm not sure if we've seen that or not. Would that have been powered? No. Maybe when we came... Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. No, not when we came back, because the power's been coming in through these two from this cable, so yeah. Okay, what do we do? So we lift the room up, don't we? Oh, we put this... Okay, let's do it the way the player might do it, I guess. Like lifting this up, because we can't push it any further left, because then we can't get under it to lift it, so we have to lift it now. And then the only thing we do now is lift it again. Now we could start moving it left. But, like, we probably want to make use of this cable that's sticking out here, otherwise, why else would it be there? And so, yeah, this is something I'm not that pleased with, like, so, especially this bit, and yeah, just getting this around this corner, I'm not that pleased with. I think it's a bit messier than it could be. One of the constraints I was, like, self-imposing, I mean, there's good reasons for it, I think. So when the game started, this, like, the ball in the middle, like the energy ball thing, lit up, and then the cable came out like this. It powered up, and it came in here. And so I knew there were going to be other bits coming off the spiral, but I didn't want them to be there at the beginning, because then the animation at the beginning would have been kind of distracting, like lots of wires going off in all different directions. I wanted you to just sort of follow it in one direction and see it come in here. So I had this constraint of, okay, so there are going to be extra bits that head off the spiral, but you're only going to enable them later by like slotting a thing in. And so I had to create mechanisms like this, where, and then the other constraint there had to be that you could only fill those in once you got to the right point. And sure, you can, like I said before, you can put this one up here if you want to early on, and expand that spiral that way, but it's just immediately useless. There's nothing you can do with that. Like, can't get in that room from that side. If you could come all the way around. Sorry about any pain this is causing these hands. But if you go this way, it's just like, okay, well, now they're just stuck there. Great. So nothing good comes from that. Now I've got lots of undoing to do. Yeah. One thing I'm not too happy with is the amount of undoing people might have to do if they're just like trying stuff out. I kind of wish PuzzleScript had a kind of, if you hold the undo, it'll undo faster. Although I could have added that, I guess, because this is technically not plain PuzzleScript. It's very close to. It is in terms of the code for the game itself. Like the PuzzleScript code is exactly plain PuzzleScript. I'm not even using PuzzleScript Plus or anything. Or the other one, PatternScript. I'm just using completely vanilla PuzzleScript. The only thing I've changed is some change to the rendering code, because PuzzleScript gets really slow if you have lots of objects. Like, genuinely, like, frames start taking like 50 milliseconds. It's like, well, that's gonna ruin everything because I have like animations that need to run fairly fast. So I fixed the rendering code to make it faster. Which I guess I might as well explain what that fix is. I should probably submit it at some point. I'm just never sure if it's like robust enough to actually submit to vanilla PuzzleScript. So in PuzzleScript, you define your game by like 5x5 objects. So everything here is a 5x5 object, even if it looks bigger than a 5x5 object. Well, things that look bigger, like the doors, they're 7x5. They're actually two objects. There's the bottom part of the door and the top part of the door. That's two separate things. So PuzzleScript, by default, every object goes into its own separate HTML canvas. There's a separate 5x5 canvas for every single object. So if you have 1,000 objects, you've got 1,000 canvases. And then when it renders like it's going to scan across the screen, seeing like what objects am I supposed to render here, and then it copies the data from the sprite canvas into the actual canvas that the player's going to see. And on Chrome and Firefox, that's really, really, really slow. To be copying this, it's something to do with if you copy from a canvas that's less than like something like 128 by 128, it's really slow for some reason. I mean, it's also just obviously an inefficient way of storing everything. So the fix that I've implemented is to, when the game loads, it doesn't create a canvas for every single object. It creates one canvas, which is effectively like a sprite map with all the objects rendered to it, and then the rendering code copies from the sprite map, which is just one big canvas, to this big canvas, and it's much faster. Also used exactly the same fix. I copied it like line by line from Confounding Confusion because I used it there as well, and it worked exactly the same. So my code's at least robust enough to work across different games. I just don't know about like different browsers and such. Anyway, where are we at? Okay, so we've got this. You're going to go there, because what that's going to do... So this is meant to be the bit that teaches you... This is something I'm not super happy with. Like, I feel like I need a nicer way of teaching this, which is that the doors can open just by being adjacent to the connectors here. Like, that counts as a wire touching it. Then this is the part where we fill that in. And we've got this bit of the spiral activated, which is nice. And then we can start pushing the room further ahead. Do I want to? Yes, I do. Because I need to get it over that door at the very least. Okay, so we can get the room here. And then, hopefully people are going, oh, now I've got this cable lit up, I can probably start making my way into this room. And then that's going to give me access to 3 whole blocks. What am I going to do with them? Who knows? Let's just take this. And then this is the bit where I'm really mean. Yeah. This is like the one red herring in the game. and I guess I'm okay with it, but like it's set up to make you think, well, there's a cable coming along here and it needs to turn that way and hit the door, so this has to go there, right? And then you go in and you're like, okay, so I've got these blocks. This is kind of weird. Why isn't there this like cable here? Do I want to take stuff this way as well? I don't know if I even can. I can't really, so well, whatever. I guess that's not where they're supposed to go. But it's fine, I can just take them out this way. Why would I take them out the long way? Take them out here. Go over here. And then this bit, I don't know if I've thought through enough. At this point, I'm hoping people don't take too long realizing this, but I haven't really thought through what that would take. But to realize that this is not enough. I mean, one way you could realize it, which I don't think anybody is going to do, but I definitely thought about it, is that here we're going to need one of these pieces. There is another one. There's one here as well, and there's one there. But to get this one, well, it's stuck. So that can't go there. And then this one, well, to get that, I'd have to get that door down. Can I do that with these? No, I can't. Like, you can easily quite figure out that you can never get a piece that could ever fill this in. So we're definitely stuck at this point. There's also like the other route to go down is to kind of go, well, okay, I know where I'm taking this room next. I'm just going here, right? Therefore, I've got to somehow power these two doors. That's these two things. How can that happen? I'm kind of hoping that people put the thing here and then realize what they need to do. Because here, the power's coming in this one. It's going to have to get to these somehow. And then the hopeful realization is that they're going to have to connect this to this. So this is the first time where we're going to connect a cable coming in to a cable going back out again. Well, no, it's not, because we've done it there. I guess there it was like a simple, trivial version of it, like practically telling you have to do it. Here it's like they're a bit further away from each other. And then it's going to happen again later here. Like, so that's another thing, is that like I have to set up things over in this corner of the level because they're relevant to something that happens like right at the end of the puzzle. I had to keep adjusting stuff down here until that would work. Yeah, okay. Cool, so let's just like do the actual thing. Undo a fair bit. Bring those back in. So that's the wrong thing to do. Somehow we need to have that turny piece. So how do we have that turny piece? Well, how much should I push these things around? There we go. Okay. Well, we just like push it here instead to open the door and then push it through the door. I think that's a really mean, sneaky trick. Okay, so the next thing. So this is the thing that I just changed. So now the thing is, well, this door's closed, so we have to get things out of here. But if I do this, sure, I can put you there. Hopefully I haven't broken this in my fix that I've just done. It's like, okay, well, how do I get things out the door? Like, because I'd have to push this out the way to do that, but then this is connected. There's some way to connect it that will make it work. No, there's no way to connect it that will make it work. So what you actually have to do is put all 4 objects here. So this is what changed. You didn't actually have to put all 4 objects here before, whereas now you do. Put that there, door opens, then we can push them through over the door like that. Ta-da! Lovely. There you can witness a kind of odd thing about how the cables work in this game, which I think it's fine. It's just not very visible. So what's happening here is you might look at this and go, why is that lit up? Because this is coming on here, it's coming down this block, and it's going there. Well, because like if you look at where a wire comes down a wall, like here, or is there one that just ends? Yeah, like this one, it just ends, right? That's still true. Along the side of this wall, there's a wire coming down. And underneath that, there's a wire that goes that way, and that wire is connecting to that. So they're all still lit up. I decided like I don't want blocks to block the cables underneath. They're still lit up. But it can lead to some slightly confusing looking things like that. Anyway, so put all these up here. lift these up. Oh, okay, so hold on. So now I've got all these, and you might realize, well, I could actually put them here already. I could connect these two things up, but then we're not going to have the power come from here to this area, so we need to get this one. And this is again not like the best part of the game, but I guess another thing I wanted people to think about. Oh yeah, I spent actually a while on this. I mean, I spent a while on so much of this because I really wanted this setup where, like, you know, you have to light up two of the things to open the gates at the same time, and then push over them. But I wanted it to kind of feel like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to connect this to here, but then how do I open that one? I also just really like the idea of having these gates that are just so far away from any cables. It's like, what? Especially that one. Like that cable or this cable, it's just miles away. I just thought it was a fun little setup. Okay, so then we have access to this thing. Let's push that up. There's like many ways of disassembling this. But okay, we've got an extra one of those. So you can actually get ready there already now, right? I think that's fine. And then we're going to push all these things down. Let's get you as well. We want you with us. So we want all four of these. Da, 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 da. I kind of wish there was like a nicer way of pushing things around here. I just ran out of space. I couldn't do anything. So that's what we get. A slightly fiddly thing. You go there, you go there, you go there. That opens that door. That's connected to there. Those two things are connected. So then when we push this along around to here, power's going to come in through this one, around this cable, down here, out of this one, which is that one there, along here, out of this one, which is that one there. Ta-da! I like I hadn't even thought about the fact it would do this, but the fact that the cable's the power's propagating step by step, like that gate closes first and then that gate closes. It's kind of a satisfying, like, double thunk noise. And they're both open. Yay! Yeah, not as elegant as I had hoped, honestly. And I ended up needing to have two of those things. So this is just the mechanism I came up for like having two of those corner pieces, but not being able to get one of them early. Yes, like honestly, I spent hours and hours and hours just like reworking, especially like this corner and this corner. Literally days of the whole thing was spent just trying to get these to work properly. And I eventually ended up deciding to keep it simpler than I was trying to do. I was trying to make sure there were like really clever little puzzles at every little bit. And at some point I was like, no, I just need to make this work. Like, it doesn't matter how clever the puzzles are around it. I just have to make something that finishes. Because I also knew how the ending needed to work, which we're getting up to now. And the ending is extremely constraining. And so I had to like, I just decided like it's better to just make it so that I can get to that ending, whatever that looks like, rather than it necessarily being super exciting puzzles the whole way. Anyway, this is like locked in now, which is kind of nice. Like I can't think of any way without connecting a cable all the way to here or this cable to there, which is not going to happen. We just don't have that much stuff. Like I don't think these are ever getting out. Maybe that's not true, but it's close enough to true that I'm happy with it. So we can bring this up. At this point, yeah, like, again, this is another one. I was like, oh, surely I need a puzzle to, like, release this corner piece. And I just decided, no, not really. I mean, there is a very slight puzzle, which is, like, it's up there, and I can't access it right now because I'm on this side of the room. So what am I going to do? There's a checkpoint there, so that sort of tells you that it's okay to keep moving the thing forwards. Technically, it's possible to like actually get because the checkpoint keeps happening, right? So like if I put this here or like put it in a corner somewhere, like anywhere that was stuck, and then I push the thing forward, that would be like a broken checkpoint. I hope nobody hit that, but I just couldn't be bothered to find a way to avoid it. Like the way the checkpoints work is it's based on there's certain tiles that are just checking for a certain object beyond them, and it's almost always the room objects. There's like a thing up here saying if the room is on top of the tile, it saves the checkpoint, except the first one where it was the player character standing here or wherever it was. Anyway, so okay, so I need to access that one. This connector is here. How do we get power to there? Well, the only power we've got around here is this one. We will eventually have power. Like, we know we're going to do it at some point. We're going to put this in there. It's the only one we've got left. It's going to go there. But like, sure, this could give power to this, but only if I could get this past this, and that's like way further along. That's the next step. So we're going to use this down here for now, temporarily, to unlock that one. And then with that, we can, I think I'm being quite kind here. It's like, clearly I'm supposed to connect this to this. Why does it wiggle? Well, there's a reason, but we'll get there in a second. Supposed to connect to that, and then we can just hold it open. Again, I had spent loads of time thinking, like, what could this look like? How could this mechanism, like, how could this puzzle work where I'm trying to get the room into this last section? That's fine, honestly. I was disappointed while I was making it, but I'm fine with that now. I don't think I would have got the thing done otherwise. Okay, then to get this room out, we have to push it left, and then up, and then right, and then up. And then, what's next? Do we now put this in? I think we can put this in now, right? Yeah, okay. We don't think we need that for anything else. Which is going to unlock these. As I showed before, I can't push these up. So I'm going to be pushing them down at some point. So hopefully we're going to have power there again. But the power for there came through this connector, which I guess is going to come from here now, but which it can because we've opened the gate up. See me running around outside. We also need to take this away because if we don't, it's just going to be like stuck behind this thing and we're never going to get it into its final position. There's this clearly like satisfying last position this needs to get into, right? That's kind of what I was aiming for the whole time. It was like, I really want there to be this like snug bit at the end with loads of wires coming into it and everything just fits so neatly and perfectly and it feels satisfying. That's what I was going for. I don't know if it worked. I hope it did. So then you realize you want to pull that thing out and you put it here. Then, I mean, it's pretty easy to set up, but like, so yeah, the other big requirement, okay, actually there's a whole bunch of requirements I had for this like final position. One is that I wanted it locked in place. Like, sure, it's locked in place anyway because you can't push it left, but I wanted there to be a door right next to it that just like, it's that snug feeling. It's like, it's in there now. It's locked in. The door's closed. Sure, I can open the door again, but like, yeah, the door's closed behind it. It's nice. Other constraints is that I wanted the next bit to use every single connector on the room. Like that was my design goal, was to at the end of this, every single wire gets used. And then a final constraint, I guess I'll talk about it when I actually do the thing that I do in a second. So in terms of like designing, like how do I make all the cables be involved in? Okay, so ultimately what we're trying to do now is open this door, which is going to open that door, and we're going to walk out of it and see what happens. So what I did is I drew a square on my whiteboard next to me, and I drew another square inside that, and I drew dashed lines between things that were already connected, and then, well, no, like solid lines between things that were already connected, and then started just like thinking about how can I add, like I know the power's coming in through here, although that wasn't always true. I think at some point I was planning the power to come from here to this, and that was going to be the first input. But what I ended up with was this. Power's coming in the bottom right-hand corner of the room, which is the top left here. So I started with that. Well, I didn't start with that. I started with the other one and tried lots of iterations of that and couldn't find anything that worked. I can't remember what the issue was. It was just hard to get the cables to cross over each other in the ways that I needed them to do in order for every cable to be used and to end up here. So I had like a choice of like which one would be the output. It could be this one, it could be this one. I had like so many choices. Because like you got to also remember that at this point when I was designing this, none of this bit existed, none of this top left bit existed. I was just like planning out the cables for this area. Like this bit down here was basically up for grabs. I could do anything with it. But yeah, I drew it out on my whiteboard and then just started connecting things to try and make a satisfying like inward and outward loop of cables. And I think I also really wanted there to be some part of it where it would go like out and in again, and another part where it would go in and out again. But then I also wanted one where it went out and then out. And I think that exists, right? I ended up doing that properly. What ends up happening? Okay, so right now it comes in this one. Oh yeah, okay, it goes in and in. That's what it does. So here, we connect that to there. That's why it bends around like this. So it's going in here, in again. Then we're like, okay, but why have we done that? Well, okay, but we have access to this stuff around here now. You see me running around inside. You can kind of imagine what's going to happen in a second. So now we have access to these. This is the thing that I was really happy with when I put this together. Because, okay, well, so we're going to end up walking out here. We're going to be really small, right? And there's these little gaps that I can get through as a small character, but not as a large character, like the one that was at the beginning room. Well, so, okay, so what I wanted is I needed to, like, I knew I wanted to connect this cable with this cable so that this would come in and then out there. And so I like gradually throughout the course of the making the game, I put these closer and closer together. But I knew that was going to require like at least three boxes and another one. And like, if I was going to release like 4 boxes at once, I didn't want them to be far away from where they're going to be used. Because originally they were going to be up here. The other constraint is that once that door opens, I did not want the player taking more boxes out of the door than I want them to. In fact, you can't take any out. You can only take out the one that you bring in. So that's another constraint that was going on here. It's like I really did not want it to be possible to bring boxes in and out of this door other than the one that I want people to bring in and out, just to keep the implementation much simpler. So I needed to release these somewhere to connect this bit, but like without breaking that constraint. And then I realized I could do this thing where I have this mechanism like cross over with the small character corridor that's through here. And I just love that little thing. It's like they cross over each other and the big character can go this way and the small character can go that way, but never the twain shall meet. like the small character can't leave out either of these exits because the gates are closed, and the big character can't go down those because the corridors are there. That was so nice when they put that in. I was super happy with it. Anyway, so let's just push these things into position. These go along here. That goes there. Now we've got power coming out of this one, which I guess we want to connect to that using this final piece that we've got. And then let's have a look at what's going to happen before we actually put it in position. So this is going to go along here, along this, down here, to this one, which is here. So it's going to come out of there around that loop. So that's just already connected. And I think that's kind of nice. It kind of tells you that there's going to be some like horrendous connectivity here, right? So that goes in there, through there, around here to this one, and that comes out to the exit. And like pretty much every cable is lit up, like all the ones that at least go into the room. Woohoo! And because the gate's open, it's open on the smaller version of the room as well. And we can walk outside. Woohoo! There's another checkpoint. Okay. So yeah, another constraint I had for this positioning of this final room, of the room, is that I wanted it so that the exit of the door exited into an area that was disconnected from everything else. For that same reason of like, I don't want the player pushing things in and out of the door. Oh, I guess another thing to mention there is that I had originally planned, well, no, I hadn't. I had considered that maybe at some point you would push the room outside of the room itself. And then decided I was just not, I can't do that. It's madness. It would require the door being bigger. So one of the reasons the room ended up being 7 wide, I think at some point the door was 5 wide. And I think it could have been in the end. Yeah, it could have been, right? But anyway, I ended up with what it is. I considered making it so you could push the room outside, but I just made it. I ended up going with the most constrained thing I could think of possible, which is that at the moment, the only moment that this gate can be open, the area that gate leads into is extremely cut off from everything else, and that made things a lot easier for me. That was a good decision I made, like on the last few days. Implementation notes, like how does it work? Like how does it work that I transition to this like tiny character here and walk along here? So originally when I started putting together, I wasn't sure how it was going to work. And what I did then, like at the very first implementation of this, which I kind of abandoned quite like fairly quickly, was that while my character was running around in the main world, there was a copy of that character running around under this room, like just all the time. There's a character running around, and if this character moved, that character would move, and so on. And so, okay, so for each position of the little character, there's like a separate object representing it in that particular pixel. And it's not too, it's like a bit tedious in the rules, but like it's just like changing one object for another object to make it move a pixel along. There's quite a few rules to make it work, but whatever. Anyway, so my original implementation, always had a character running around underneath, and then when you walked out, it's just like that character emerged. That's no longer what's happening. And it looks like that's what's happening. It's like pretty seamless. What's actually happening here is that the whole time I was running around here, like while I'm not visible, there's nothing under there. There's no tiny character or anything. The tiny character that shows up here is just an illusion that's just drawn on. It's just like there's a few sprites that represent a pixel there, and a pixel there, and I draw them on. And same is true here. Like I'm drawing on a sprite that represents the player at this position, but it's not an actual playable character. Then when you step here, it's still true. This is still a sprite, like a fake version of the character. But on the next step, they swap over effectively. This becomes the illusion, and this becomes the actual character object that I'm controlling, which is just a nice place to put the boundary. So yeah, at this point, this is no longer a playable character object. This is just, there's a rule saying if there's a tiny character next to the door, draw a kind of a thing that looks like the playable character outside the door. This is not the actual, you can't tell, it changes because they look identical, but it's changing from a playable character object to a rendering of the character, and this is now the playable character object. Anyway, now I'm tiny, woohoo. So yeah, as I walk past the windows, that's still true, right? That's the fake rendering. It's not drawing the body of the player there, it's just drawing the top, just because that's all it needs to draw. So a fun quirk about the fact that the whole thing's rotated 180 degrees is now that my controls are rotated 180 degrees for this little pixel character. But now I can head through these corridors, woohoo! And hopefully people already noticed the little blue pixel thing up there. But if not, at this point you come through, get to here. There's all sorts of like custom collision logic for like not being able to walk through these walls and all sorts of things. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Also, like the character is 3D still, right? Like it pokes up above the wall, so there's still like multi-object rendering things happening with the tiny version of the character, and with the tiny version of this block that I can push around, this blue thing. There we go. Got a little block that we can push. So technically, the rules. Like I originally planned to have multiple tiny blocks out here, and there are rules that allow you to push like do multi-push of blocks in the tiny version, and I should have just removed them in the end because there's currently no way of having 2 tiny blocks, because I intentionally constrained it because I did not want to deal with that. But let's bring this block all the way. Because like ultimately we want to power this, but where do we get a thing to go in here? I mean, where could it even come from? Like you can't bring in a thing this way and put it in there because the space doesn't allow for it. You can't bring anything in that way either because there's gates in the way. So this is the block. So as we bring this up, so that's also true for the block. That's a fake rendering of the block. This is currently the real thing. When it pushes over the door, well, no. Oh, there is when that becomes the actual block. I'm still a fake person, still a fake rendering of the character, and then we're both real. Okay, and then you go there, opens up that, and oh no, we leave. We go out this way. We go tiny again, and we run. Again, sorry if this hurt anybody's hands, or wrists, or shoulders, or whatever. It is what it is. I have to do it for the joke. For the joke of running around as a tiny little character. And then finally we get to walk through this corridor into the first room that we're in. And I love tying things together like that as well. Just where like you end up back at the start. I'm kind of curious how many people like see the small gap and then go, oh, I'm going to end up being small. Like right at the beginning of the game, see the small gap and think, immediately, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen here. Also, this is where I can show why I added this gate in. So I added this gate right now. Is at this point of the game, I've got everything working. I was running through here. I was like, oh no, but I can just like run out this way. And then in theory, I could like run back out the door and I'd have to figure out what that meant. And I was like, there's no way I'm figuring out what that means. So I just put a gate here. So this is like, there's no exit. There's no way of leaving. You're just trapped in this little small character world. Until you stand on this. Is there anything to say before I stand on this thing? I think that's probably enough, right? I remember, okay, so something I forgot to mention right at the start, because I mentioned like there was an animation when it started up. The only reason there's an animation at all is because I wanted you to be able to see that spiral starting up and then going there. And I feel like if it did that immediately as soon as you start the game, it would be too overwhelming to see what's going on. So the animation at the start gives a moment for like the level to kind of soak in, then it powers up and you get to watch it happening. Anyway, that's that. And that's the end of that puzzle. I wasn't too big. That took me an hour to talk through. I think like it probably takes about an hour to solve. It's much bigger than I wanted it to be. It wasn't too big. No, like it's a much more complicated puzzle than I had intended for it to be. But it just kept... I think it's just inherent in the mechanics and the idea that I was trying to do, that it was going to be like that. So I just let it happen. It's certainly not the biggest puzzle in the Confounding Calendar. So I'm happy with the size. It's just like I kind of do next time want to do one of the like nice 5-minute puzzle things that people make, which are very kind of gentle and just feel great as like a little thing to do each day of December. Whereas I think some of the things that I and others have made maybe a little bit outside the intentions of the calendar. Anyway, I wasn't too big. The target was too small. That's a reference to Grim Fandango. I think it might be the other way around. No, it's the same way. Yeah. So it's like Glottis, the demon character, is always complaining because he can't get into the cars that they drive around to like pick up people from the Day of the Dead. And he ends up like souping up one of the cars to be like huge and so that it fits him. And he's like, I wasn't too big. The cars were too small, or something like that. And yeah, there we go. That's what that's a reference to. Thank you for playing. Thank you for watching. Thank me for making it. That's me thanking me. It's not an order to thank me. That was me thanking me for making it. I really enjoyed making it. It was a lot of fun. Oh, you can see that animation again. There we go. It's a cool little animation too. Just random kind of shapes and patterns being made. yeah, it was really fun. It was extremely difficult to design. Like such a constrained space to deal with and not break anything the whole time. Like anything you moved, just everything broke. I couldn't like push connectors close together because suddenly, because they were used like 10 times throughout the whole thing. And that changed like the dimensions of the corridors that I was pushing things along. Like it would break in surprising ways. Like I would move something thinking, oh, I can move that, it doesn't matter. And then you're just like, oh no, that has changed everything. Anyway, cool. Thanks for watching, folks. It was fun to talk through. I think I'm done with the Confounding Calendar. Yeah, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. There's a whole bunch of puzzles that I didn't finish, but it's okay. It's totally fine. I very much look forward to the next ones this December, but I'm glad there's a break. I can't. Yeah, I think it would be nice to encourage much smaller puzzles next time. Like I know it is sort of encouraged. I think the instructions are gone, right? There were instructions about how to submit. I think it suggested making it small, but it wasn't one of the like the main rules of like using the color palette and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, the color palette. Took me a long time to come up with like a way of using the colors that felt readable and understandable and not like because like some of the colors do not go well together at all. Like the bright green color and the bright blue color just really do not nicely fit together. When I say green, it's like a green, like brightish greenish yellow or whatever. And the light blue doesn't go together. And then there's like the purples in search. And so coming up with some set of colors that allow me to present all the objects that I need to present with shading on the sides of them and all that kind of stuff, it was really challenging. But it ends up really looking really nice. I have not used a single color that is not in the palette. This is just palette colors. And I've used them all for sure. Like two of them I've only used for the character and the target. I think originally the walls were this color. I'm so glad I moved to this. This is much nicer. Anyway, okay, that is it. That is it. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. Hope it was interesting. I don't need to say see you for next time because there isn't going to be a next time. Just watch my other videos that I put up or whatever they are. Okay, goodbye.